So far I've done 2 or 3 different types of capital anomalies, although I've never done one with the CNC carrier. Last time I believe I was using a Archon. Now one interesting fact, this CNC carrier and the Archon that I used before aren't my ships. Both of these ships belong to my boss, so I have to be very careful with what I'm doing with these ships, especially with this thing. This thing costs so much. I mean, the IP cost is through the roof, which is kind of to be expected. This is, after all, a faction carrier. Now, I've been told that the special fleet Anomaly is a little bit more dangerous. And I've also been told that with the previous builds, I was more of a glass build, that I wouldn't be able to warp to the safe spot upon landing. I was told that the ship would be basically torn to shreds. Now, I believe that I went a little bit overboard with this build here, with this tank. It is mostly because this is not my ship, and I definitely do not want to accidentally scratch the paint on this thing, and I definitely do not want to have a 600 billion ISK loss. So this is why the tank on this CNC care for this anomaly is going to be a little bit, let's say, unconventional. Definitely not something that you should use on your own care. This is because this ship doesn't belong to me, and I definitely do not want to lose it. So in order to maximize the chance of survival, it has quad adaptives, 1 reactive, and a damage tool. Although Sunshine ships use lasers, so technically a reactive hardener would be more than enough, but I mean, a couple of adaptives and a reactive hardener, although they still do some damage on my shields. These enemies are no joke. Now, the special fleet will have 3 different waves, and there are going to be some very nasty elite ships included. Now, the overall bounties and the overall loot should be really good. Let me approach the citadel, and then we can start opening fire. Now I'll remove the small ships first, and then I will focus on the carriers. This CN carrier has a DPS build. I mean, it's a classic DPS build that is, I would say, the more common build that you will see on a CN carrier. Still has about 7000 DPS, maybe a little bit less than that, but around that number, so that's going to be really good. Actually, I did try to compare the DPS outputs between the carriers. I think the Thanatos and the Nidhoggur have the highest DPS output. When we're looking at the faction carriers, I believe the CN carrier is definitely performing the best when it comes to DPS. However, I think all of these variables are not really that easy to calculate in the end. I mean, it is easy, since you have that fitting on the DPS, but I think the skills also have a lot to play here. Not all carriers will have the same application or the same fighter speed and things like that. And then of course we have to take the ship price into account. I mean, I hear a lot about the CN carrier being the best, in a way it is kind of understandable, because it can go into high sec. No other carrier can do that. I mean, I jokingly said last time that we might get a CN Ocean, which is technically, if we follow the ship naming scheme here, should be a CONCORD super capital. Now, if that ever happens, that's gonna be hilarious. I mean, at that point, I think that's gonna be just downright hilarious. A super carrier able to go into high sec. That would be funny. Although not really sure that it's going to happen. I think the CN carrier is basically the only capital that's ever going to be able to enter high sec. What's up with my chat doesn't want to open? Okay, my apologies for that. Now, so far we have been clearing a lot of these special anomalies. I have been participating in a couple of them. I remember the first time I tried to run one of these sites. I didn't really have a carrier. That was basically when we initially made this system our home. I was flying a rock, but I wasn't really doing much. I was basically just kind of leeching off the carrier that was in the fleet, and I kind of feel bad because I wasn't able to do anything. If I were to approach just a little bit below 260 kilometers, I would have been torn to shreds, because these revelations have very long range and they do some very nasty damage. These ships are basically no joke. Now, the ordinary carriers and ordinary dreadnoughts aren't that much of a problem, but the elites are very nasty, and I'm mostly worried about the elites, and I've been told to watch out for the elites the most, because the elite ships are apparently the most dangerous ones. Although the 260 plus kilometer trick works really well, as you can see. No issues with the tank when the enemy ships aren't really after you, and they have the range programmed to go to about 250 kilometers, and then they stop attacking you. And I've also heard that at this distance, when you go above this range, that they also turn off their tank, so you are going to be doing a lot more damage to them. I've also noticed that rule doesn't really apply to the drone ships in the Cobalt Edge systems, because their tank seems to go into overdrive when you're trying to do the same trick. So I think this trick doesn't seem to be that consistent with all of the NPC ships that we have in the game. So I think the AI for these ships is kind of different. Who knows, maybe down the road they do change the mechanics again. Very highly possible. They did change the mechanics once, they will change them again. Back like a couple years ago, you used to be able to go, was it 1,000 kilometers before they stopped chasing? I remember that back then you were able to pull out that one dangerous elite ship, and you were able to deal with it quite easily, and then the rest of the ships were easy. It's still kind of funny to think about the early story missions. They usually had like one or two ridiculously fast ships, either a cruiser, battlecruiser, or battleship, that reach over like 7-8 kilometers per second. That was ridiculous, and they were quite scary back then. But overall, once you kill them, the story mission was quite easy. Nowadays we don't really have such dangerous ships. There are elites, of course, but they're not as fast, so that's one good thing that has been changed from back then. Now we are still at, I think, the first wave, and we're focusing on a elite revelation. Now, in order to get the bookmark, I usually use a Astro to stealthily approach that designated distance, because I've been told, and I think I've also seen this happen in action, how the elite revelations are able to track a interceptor going 7 kilometers per second. They just pop it. That was kind of funny, and that's why I personally prefer to make a bookmark with an Aster. I remember in one of the previous videos someone asked me, how did I get to the bookmark? How do I warp without a alt? Well, it's actually very simple, very easy. You don't really need to have an alt, although you can. It's also one of the, I would say, faster ways without having to make a bookmark. Basically, you can get an alt, travel with the alt to 300 kilometers, then you warp with your carrier at 100, and then you warp at your alt directly, and then you continue to run the mission or anomaly. Now in my case, since I don't really use an alt for this job, my alt usually is watching the pipe entrance far away, so I know what ships are headed towards our system. I usually take the Astra, stealthily approach 200-300 kilometers, make a bookmark. I dock to change into the carrier. I undock, warp to 100 at the anomaly, and then I set the autopilot to the bookmark, and then the ship automatically warps to the bookmark. And then I can simply continue to run the anomaly. It's a very interesting trick. I don't really know when the trick was discovered. I think it was discovered basically when they have changed the overall mechanics of the AI. Now, is it quite possible that they will make them insta repair once you go out of range? Well, you know, it's possible, definitely possible. And if they do that, then that will definitely change a lot of things, especially the capital anomalies, because running them would be much more difficult, since you wouldn't be able to break their tank that easily, since they would be able to automatically just boost up their shield, armor and hull to 100%. But so far that doesn't seem to be the case, and not really worried that they will change the mechanics much for the foreseeable future. What I find interesting though is that they did change the mechanics for the drones. I remember the way Secret Anomalies, upon I think day 1 or day 2, actually day 1, you were able to do them the same way as you were able to do any other anomaly, but back then they didn't really have that crazy, well, not exactly tank. They did have the tank, but they didn't really have that very quick recharge, or should I say very quick repair. They did change that very quickly after the release, so that was kind of funny, but I don't really think that they will change that again for the normal NPC ships. The ISK reward is definitely very nice. Not going to complain about that. You can, I think I've heard you can get about 2 billion from the whole anomaly, which is I think pretty solid. Around 2 billion. I've also heard that the estimated price does go up and down. So 2 billion, 1.5 billion, 1 billion. It's around those numbers. So that is going to be, I mean, it's going to be good. I'm definitely not going to say no to that. Any ISK is good ISK. My skills for the Cyan Carrier aren't actually that bad. Recently, I did skill out of a lot of ships, and I did skill out of carriers and dreadnoughts because I was trying to allocate skills for various different ships. I was maxing out some cruiser stuff, I was maxing out some battleship stuff, and all that did take some SP, but once I fixed that, once I made everything the way I wanted to, or actually once I was close to achieving that, I did return some of my carrier skills. And even with those carrier skills, I still have some pretty good DPS on this CNC. Overall, definitely not the best, but it's definitely not bad. And the performance, I mean, have enough SP to basically be able to operate a lot of different ships. Maxed out in cruisers and nearly maxed out in battleships, but have basically no skills for battlecruisers, very little skills for frigates, and well, recently skilled out of dreadnoughts, and I also have some carrier skills. Now, maybe down the road, depending on how things go, if it ever happens that I don't have any use for a carrier or for carrier skills, then the carrier skills will also be pulled out, and I'll be doing something different with the SP points. It is definitely a quite flexible thing in my case, but eventually, as time goes on, I'll have all the necessary skills for all the ships that I want to fly. Now, recently I've heard that Black Ops battleships are supposedly to come into the game, so maybe I will save SP points and ISK to get the battleship skills to a certain degree. I mean, I don't really know what skills will be required for the Black Ops battleships. They are going to be kind of a mix between a cover-tops cruiser and a battleship. If you ask me which one I'll fly, I'll definitely fly the Panther. How will they be called? That's also a question. Well, maybe they'll take the original names. I hope they do. Take the original names. There's a good chance that they will. So there will be unique ships, and I'm all in for that. As some have already guessed in the past, with the addition of Black Ops battleships, you are probably going to be able to launch signals from them, and I think you might be able to open a jump bridge. And with the addition of the jump bridge system in the game, I believe that Titans are also not that far off. So we're slowly getting there. A lot of new things are being slowly added, so I'm very surprised with the Black Ops battleships, but at the same time not really surprised, because it's been suggested that they will make an appearance for a couple months now, and with the addition of new ships, as we are progressing towards the end of 2023, having Black Ops battleships is definitely something that I can't really say that I wasn't expecting to see. And speaking of Black Ops battleships, you can bet that the Marshal will be added. The Marshal is the CONCORD Black Ops battleship, and if it ends up being quite, let's say, interesting, if the ship ends up being also affordable, and if it's even added, I'll definitely be flying it. Right now, kind of torn between the Panther and between the Marshal. I think the Marshal has like bonuses on all weapon systems, so if I have to pick between a Panther and between a Marshal, I think I'm definitely getting a Marshal, because I'm going to be able to utilize like all the weapon systems, from lasers to missiles. Since if my memory serves me well, the CONCORD battleship has a bonus on all weapon systems, which is a very nice thing to have. It means you can use any weapon that you have skills for, and the ship can use them. So that's one very interesting trait of that ship. You can bet that it will be expensive for sure. The price on that thing is not going to be low. And also the question, is the ship going to be available for the boxes? Well, I'm giving it a 50-50 chance that it's going to be through boxes. Basically what we already seen with the Navy battleships, with the Navy frigates. The same thing that we have seen with the CyanSea carrier, and the same thing that we have seen with the special cruisers. But who knows? Maybe they will change the way of the. Maybe they'll change the way on how the ship is being obtained. So yeah, we will find out, I guess, soon enough. I say soon enough. I'm still kind of more excited for more expansions, to be honest. More space to be explored and things like that. But anyway, I got kind of carried away a little bit. Let's see how this Anomaly is progressing. Well, so far it's been a pretty chill experience. Very chill experience. Now there is some neutrals nearby, and there has been some fleets roaming nearby, so have to always be careful with very expensive ships. Now my alt is, I think, a little bit down the road within the pipe, so I have positioned my alt in such a way that even if I accidentally click on the special mode of the carrier, since you have that 120-second cooldown where you can't really do much, you can't disable it, you can't really do anything. If you accidentally click on that, you have to wait 2 minutes for the cooldown to go away. But I have positioned my alt in such a way that if there is threat coming, I have like an additional 5 minutes to react. So any incoming threat is basically spotted on time, and there is very little chance of being surprised. Like, there's 0% chance to be surprised, because by the time a interceptor can get towards our location here, we are all already docked, since we have that early info on the ship, on the location of the ship, and we also have some info on most of the incoming ships that are coming towards our way. However, despite that, I still will build my ships to be tanks, because that way, even if I somehow mess up, if my internet dies, there is still enough time for reinforcements to arrive. And reinforcement is actually very close. They're not that far away. Basically a minute or two away. There's some very nasty ships 1 minute away from our location, so I'm not really worried about that. It's very safe. It's very safe, and overall the response time is pretty decent. Can't really complain about that too much. Could be better in some cases, but definitely it's okay. Now, 56 plus ships. I think this is the last wave. I did do some cut editing here and there. I don't want to make this like an hour-long video, so it's going to be some cuts here, some cuts there. The vast majority of ships that you see on the overview is usually fighters, since we are focusing on the carriers, on the battleships and dreadnoughts. But in a lot of cases we do leave the fighters until the very end. Now, there are some instances where the fighters will not attack your ship if their mothership is destroyed. So basically, if you were to warp out and warp into the anomaly, but you have cleared all the carriers, you have cleared all the battleships and all the dreadnoughts, the remaining fighters will not attack you. They'll just sit there. You can attack them. If you do, then they will shoot at you. But if you just warp and start looting, they should not be targeting you. But again, be careful, since I can already see that they'll start locking even after their mothership is destroyed. But this is something that I've noticed in various different tests that I did. Basically, the fighters don't shoot if you warp out and warp back in, but before that, if you clear all the ships and if you only leave the fighters, then they should not be locking you. So that is, I would say, kind of interesting. No idea why that's the case. Maybe they changed that. I haven't really tested that out in like a month, so maybe they changed something, maybe they didn't. Actually, if my memory serves me well, there's going to be a friendly interceptor looting the wrecks here, so that's where I think that there's going to be a friendly interceptor looting the wrecks here. So and they didn't have any issues with the fighters, so yes, the mechanics haven't been changed much. Well, 48 ships left, the vast majority of which are fighters. Honestly, it is not that I think that the most difficult part of this special knowledge is the bookmark, since you have to get to the location, you have to get to the designated distance, and you have to warp the carrier to the designated distance without getting destroyed. That is usually much easier on the normal capital anomalies, but the special fleets, from what I've been told, are different. And maybe I'll test that out on the test server just to see what happens. But I'll definitely take the advice from my friends that told me that I should be very careful. So if I decide to run a different special fleet anomaly, I'll definitely lower the tank just a little bit. Might drop to adaptives and might add a bit more DPS to the carrier, although the damage control is definitely staying. Lately I haven't been flying a ship without a damage control. It is such a very useful module, and overall it is really helpful nowadays, especially with I mean, you can technically fit the new special damage control on the carrier and on the dreadnought, but that one is only a single use basically. So that's why I'm mostly using the normal damage control. You can use it all day long. It has a long cooldown, but you can use it in a more active way. And I'm still hoping that they add a more active version of the damage control. It doesn't have to be the same, the same tank, same like 50%, 25, 45% resistance on all damage types should be more than enough, I would say, for a active module. Basically the old school EVE Online damage control that used to be a active module. I really do miss that module. It was very easy to build a ship with it, and it was very easy to create a very good tank build, but at the same time a very good DPS build. And this game kind of needs a module like that, since it would help out a lot versus all the crazy DPS outputs that we still have. Although it's not as bad as it used to be, but the DPS is, generally speaking, still quite high. It used to be much worse, that's true. It used to be much worse, but lately it's getting better. I mean, it definitely got better. If you remember, when were implants released? A year ago? Back then, on the test server, I managed to get a 55,000 DPS Macarial and other crazy values like that. Well, nowadays a Macarial can't really have that amount of DPS. It's around 15,000, which is still quite high, but not as bad as 55,000. So things have definitely been changed and nerfed. Doesn't mean that it is perfect. So it is not perfect. It can always be better, but it is definitely better than what it used to be. So we have completed the special anomaly, the wrecks, and the loot there will be looted. Overall, it was a pretty smooth run. Definitely quite a relaxing experience, especially if you have eyes in the pipe. You know what ships are coming in, so you don't have to worry about being jumped. But overall, this was a very smooth run. I am definitely very happy with the performance of the Cyan carrier. They added a bit more tank to it, so it does tank a little bit better than before. And I still have to test out all of the carriers, which I will, since all of them have received a bit more tank, and some of them have even received some more DPS. So I think that's going to be quite fun to check out. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. And with that being said, stay safe, play safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.